friends. I'm Margaret.
And I'm Colleen.
And we're the
Cousins Weird. And we're back.
Yay, sorry about the...
From outer space.
I can't stand to sit there with that
sad look upon your face. I knew you missed us. That's why we were saying.
I know, oh my god. We're, it's been too long. I just talked about it, like, I haven't seen you since, like, before Christmas.
We haven't seen each other since before Christmas.
Yeah. We've been messaging and sending weird things to each other, but we haven't actually...
been in the same room.
I haven't seen her face.
No. It's crazy. We did a holiday hiatus, which you have to do. You need to regroup. But then we, like, had a horrible windstorm here and lost power everywhere.
Yep.
And then Margaret was sick and couldn't even talk without coughing for, like, weeks. She still is.
I am. It's like on New Year's Day, I, like, that Saturday before New Year's,
mm-hmm.
I, had a wicked... My throat was sore. And then, like, I woke up New Year's Day with laryngitis and I couldn't talk. And then it kind of morphed into this hacking cough. And it was like hacking and, like, one of those dry coughs is just really annoying. And
they won't go away.
And you cough, and either you throw up or you pee your pants. It's real fun, let me tell you. And my ribs hurt.
I hate that.
And now it's like, I'm like 3 weeks out and I'm still like...
yeah, coughing.
It's awful. And sometimes I'll hack up a huge, like, wad of phlegm, and I'm like, well, at least it was produced something, and you feel like you accomplished something.
Right, after all that work.
It's just annoying. Because I don't feel sick. And now, like, just the last few days I've had a stuffy nose, but I think that's more to do with the weather and allergies.
Well, the weather has been crazy. We've had horrible weather. We've had lots of snow and cold, and then it, like, semi-melts and gets, like...
Right now, it's all slushy.
Yeah, it's awful.
It really is.
Well, we were going to record last night, but then they were calling for freezing rain, so we're like, well, that's not safe. So we were like, we have to do it together because we haven't seen each other. So we did it tonight. So here we are.
We're here.
We made it. Oh,
and
my goodness.
It's like, I want to catch up because, like, tons of stuff has happened, but it's been so long now that I forgot.
I can't remember what the stuff is.
I can't either.
Anymore. But we did a holiday hiatus. We took a little downtime, longer than we thought.
Yes.
And that's okay.
But we're back now. We're going to get back regular. I'm starting back to nail school, so we're going to have to probably record on weekends now.
Okay.
Because I'll be working or at school at night. It's nights, and it's in New Hartford near Utica, so
she's not going to be next door.
I've been making myself stay up till 11 o'clock every night.
To get used to doing it?
Yes, because I'm going to be driving home from Utica at 9 o'clock.
Oh, God, Margaret, you're going to need caffeine
and
yourself.
I am going to get home and not be able to fall asleep.
How many months is this?
This is 4 nights. It's Monday through Thursday, starting the 5th of February, and the last day of school is the 6th of June.
Oh, golly. That's a lot.
It is.
And being a mama.
And, you know, if I went to Continental, they only do full-time, and it would be done in a month. If you think about it in that kind of, it's really not long. It's just that I'm only going for 3 hours, 4 hours a night.
But you're working during the day.
Right.
And then driving.
I'm working Monday and Tuesday still and Friday. So, like, I'll get done early on Monday and Tuesday. Usually those are my late days. So now Fridays I'm staying till 7. So, like, I wanted to do that, the tarot divination class. Yeah. I was really interested in it, but I'm like, I'm going to be working.
Oh.
I won't be able to do it.
That would have been fun. Yeah, I signed up for those.
For the divination?
Yeah.
I really would like. I mean, I probably could go through and just make sure I get done early on those 2 days, but it's like... I'm trying to think of, like, when I have time and when people are going to want to come in.
Yeah, I know. You have to be available.
And now that we hired another esthetician, I'm not going to have access. My room isn't going to be, my flexibility isn't going to be. Yeah. Like, I can't just switch days. I have to make sure it's okay with the other girl.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm just excited to start getting regular facials from someone that isn't myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. I'm real excited about that.
Good. I don't think I have anything new. My car died. Went to see the bills. My car died. I had to get a new car. That kind of sucked because it was right before Christmas.
I know.
Who wants to put a big down payment on a car?
No.
When you're trying to buy. Thank goodness I had a lot of my shopping done because we would have. Christmas would have been canceled. Yeah. This year if I hadn't already bought a bunch of stuff.
Right.
But other than that, my life is about the same. Just, plug it away.
When things happen and like everything comes in an avalanche.
Yeah, and that's life, and you gotta you gotta be mad and process it and but then you gotta say, you know what, I can get through this, and then you do it, because if you can't live in the negative, because Because when you do that, everything you attract, what you feel is what you attract. So we can't attract more. So we move forward.
Move forward. I'm doing the crystal tray class next week. Are you?
I don't know if I'm going to do that one or not. Because I
excited.
did the crystal grid class already. I don't know if it's different than that.
I don't know.
I have to ask Holly.
Yeah.
If it's the same, I might not do it because I've already done one. But I'm getting really deep into my metaphysical life. Really embracing my witchy side. I took a scrying class the other night.
I know. I really wanted to get into that. It was awful.
It drained me. Like, I was so exhausted the next day from trying to do it that I could barely function yesterday. I'm feeling better today, but it was probably good we didn't record it because I don't know if I could have formed words by the time I was done with work. And work has been a little stressful, so on top of that. But I don't know if that's normal. Probably is. You're really focusing. I was really focused, hyper-focused, trying to do it. But it was interesting. It was cool. But I actually, I only saw a little bit. I saw flowing hair, like woman's hair flowing, like long locks of flowing hair at one point. And I kept getting this thought of triple in my head. Triple. And I was like, what's that? Why do I keep on thinking? And we talked about it during the class, like what each of us saw or if you saw anything. And she was really impressed that a lot of us saw stuff because she's like, that's not usually happen. And I said, is it because we're all here together doing it at the same time? Like it increased she goes, you know what, that could be it. Like your energy increased it, you know? And someone said that maybe it's a deity coming through, like the triple
goddess.
Yeah, mother, maiden, crone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's something it could be.
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I need to probably take a week before I try it again because I got so tired.
Yeah.
Doing it. So anyway.
Do it on a day you don't have to work the next day?
Yes. Don't work the next day afterwards.
I got a new set of tarot cards for Christmas.
Oh, that's fun.
They're elemental tarot cards. So they're different and they don't have a reverse meaning.
Oh, I have a set that don't have a reverse meaning too.
Which I kind of like.
Right.
I guess.
I think you can learn them better.
They're really pretty. Like,
I like that.
Except for like there's no people in any of them. They don't have, so like for the queen it's just like a crown. They're different crowns. And then like the suits are not as like artistic as the other, but the major arcana is really pretty.
Oh, nice.
They're really pretty.
I was excited to see them.
Yeah, I actually got them from Wellness Cottage.
Oh, did you? I love the Wellness Cottage. Shout out to the Wellness Cottage.
Yes.
We're actually gonna, I talked to Holly, we're gonna at some point utilize her room to do ghost stories and have people come and share their ghost stories and do another ghost story thing.
Oh my god, I love it so much.
I haven't told Margaret this yet, but Holly and I talked about it and she said that you can rent that space and it's very cheap, let me just say.
Okay.
Ridiculously.
Awesome.
And we can host a ghost story night.
I want to do it because a lot of the right people go there.
Exactly.
You know?
Our people go there.
Our people.
So
yeah.
I think that it'll be fun. I just had to reach out to her and see. I know we'd have to do it on a weekend because you're not going to be able to be around at all. So we'll figure it out.
Summertime.
Yeah. So we'll figure. I mean, even if we have to do it in the summertime, it's fine too.
Right.
There's no rush. But we're going to do one. So if you're local or within the surrounding area, keep an ear out and come to it because it'll be fun. Even if you don't have a story to tell, sitting there and listening to other people is really fun too. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're ready.
I
have an interesting story, and when I was doing my research, I found this book, and it was where I got the idea from. It's like different things that happened in every day of the year, like things in weird history on every day.
Okay, yeah.
So and I was reading through it, and I'm like, well, I got to look through January because we're recording January. And I went to it's January 19th, 1919, right? I'm going to do a little bit of backstory here. We're going to talk a little bit about molasses.
Oh.
Molasses is a little bit of an innocuous substance if you think about it. Like, it's used in a lot. It's thicker than molasses. It's like slower than molasses because molasses is thick. And when you tip it over to pour it out of the jar, it comes out real slow. Right. But most of us have all eaten molasses, whether it's in like molasses cookies, which are one of my top cookie for me.
Yes.
With ginger and the crystallized sugar on the outside. It's all
so
crackly.
Oh, Margaret, you're making me want to eat some right now.
Me too. But you might not want to after I get done with this story.
Oh, God. Well, maybe ruin them for me, then I won't crave them. Okay.
Right. So, molasses production, we're going to Boston,
Oh, shipping off to Boston.
Yes.
Whoa.
It played a major role in the economy of Boston in the early 20th century and even earlier than that. Molasses wasn't just used in food. It's also the main ingredient in rum. This is where rum comes from, molasses.
Didn't know that.
As well as industrial alcohol, which it was used for in the production of explosives and munitions and also industrial applications, just different ones for alcohol. 1919, we're in a World War II.
Yes.
So at this point, industrial alcohol, there's a huge call for it at the time in the United States.
Right.
Go back a little further. In the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, well, mostly the 18th and 19th centuries, Boston was an important port in the molasses trade. And they called it the Triangle because people in Europe, they would go to Africa and trade goods for slaves, which they would bring to the East Indies, which was the Caribbean, to bring to the plantations to work the sugar fields. And then the sugar would be picked and processed into raw sugar. And at first, molasses was a byproduct of sugar making. And it was something that they would just feed to the pigs or the livestock or dump on the ground.
Okay.
Until they realized, we can ferment this and make a delicious beverage.
So wait. Rum
is made from molasses.
And it stems to slavery.
Right.
White people, man.
But molasses isn't. You know where sugarcane is indigenous to, like where it first was discovered.
Where?
In the South Pacific.
Oh.
Everything comes from the Asians. I'm telling you, anything good in life starts from Asia. Most everything.
It's true.
And it's one of
smart people.
There have been records. They've found it as old as 8,000 BCE. Sugarcane. Yes. And it's one of the oldest cultivated crops in history. Like, it's one of the first things people actually cultivated. And they used to eat the fruit. They call it sugar fruit. And they eat it fresh. And then they realized if you smush it, it makes this sweet liquid. And if you cook the liquid, it crystallizes and you have this delicious...
yumminess.
Crystally, sugary.
Crunchy, yum.
My diabetic heart... No, I actually don't have diabetes.
I do. My diabetic heart wishes she could eat it, but she can't. God.
But, molasses, Boston was one of those... They would go from Europe to Africa.
It was a good port.
To the South Pacific. Not South Pacific. To the Caribbean. And then from the Caribbean, they would take the sugar and the molasses, and they'd bring it to different ports up the east coast of the United States. And that's where they would sell it, or they would store it, and then they would trade it off, and they would make things from it, and then ship it off back to Europe. So it's like this triangle of ports that they would hit,
Right.
Molasses, I already said, it's a byproduct of processing sugarcane and sugar beets. In the colonial era, these crops were grown and processed in tropical places in the Caribbean, like Jamaica and the East Indian. They called it the East Indies because it was back in pre-colonial times, India was where you got all the good spices, and it was a different, it was more tropical. There was different foods,
right? And
then we're just going to get to it from this other direction, and then they find America, and it was
that's why native
in the East Indies. It's that's where they're similar, getting different foods and things, After processing, it would be shipped to the northeastern coast of the United States, which I already said. In the 18th and 19th centuries, rum became a popular beverage, and so there were many distilleries built in Boston to provide for the increased demand of this delicious, tasty beverage.
I want some right now.
Me too. I should have had rum.
We should have went back to our roots. And had a cocktail. We used to have cocktails. If you didn't listen from the beginning, we used to have cocktails that went along with the theme of our... But we realized that we would become broke and alcoholics if we continued that way.
Right, really.
But tonight we're having hard seltzers, so...
I'm red-cheeked from it, so, And as we head into the 20th century, the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, or the USIA, with its eye on the immense profits that could be made, decided to build a large tank. They decided to build large tanks for storing molasses in specific places up the eastern coast. Boston was one of the places that had one. And the supply of molasses, this is to supply molasses for the growing needs of the nation. So, they build these big tanks to come and drop a bunch of molasses in them, right? And these, the different companies they had that distilled alcohol would just go and get it from these tanks. But I think that, because it was just to store.
Right.
Yeah, this is for storage mostly. In 1915, we're in World War II here. World War I, sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, you get it. A subsidiary, like it's
a hard word,
of the U.S. Industrial Alcohol Company called Purity Distilling Company started construction on a holding tank, which they called the Great Molasses Tank.
That's creative.
Real thoughtful. Yep. In Boston's North End. It was at 529 Commercial Street, where there's building this huge tank. And in my brain, I'm thinking a tank like a propane tank.
Okay.
It's not. It's like a big, think of like a silo.
Yes.
But bigger around.
Like a fat, short silo. Like where they store like gas and stuff.
Right.
Like that.
But it's not like a cylinder like a submarine.
No,
it's more up and
wide.
Down.
Yeah, because the Hess gas things in Syracuse look like short, fat silos.
Yes, and that's exactly what this is.
Okay.
Right? This was 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter.
And it filled what?
It could hold molasses. Guess how many gallons of molasses you could fit in here?
I can't.
2.3 million. 2.3 million gallons of molasses. Millions.
Large, big things like that I can't comprehend make me gag. I don't know what that is about me.
And the fact that it's full with a huge brown viscous liquid.
What if it busted at the seams? Oh God, there's a story with that. I can tell by your face.
Colleen, you're jumping ahead.
Oh, sorry.
You're ruining the surprise.
My brain went right to that. I can't help it.
Okay. Boston's North End was densely and diversely populated. It had a lot of immigrants living there. It was very industrial. Like, this is like the hub of industry in Boston.
There's a good port.
Yep, there's a port right there. There's water. They have the ships coming in. They can make their deliveries.
All sorts of
factories are there. It's just like a lot of it. It was
jobs.
Close to the
People
waterfront.
can make money.
Lots of people.
You can make a life.
Also, one thing I wrote in the margins that I miss.
I do that all the time.
2.3 million gallons is enough that's enough molasses to fill 3.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. 3.5 swimming pools full of molasses.
That's crazy. And all I can think of is that could be a new Olympic sport where you had to swim through molasses.
You would die.
Sucked in and never come back up again.
It would coat you and it does not come off. Like tar. It's
That's
like tar, Colleen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And this is in January. In Boston.
Cold!
Which is going to be similar to January in New York.
Yeah, it's a cold New England place.
All right, so we're going to January 15th, 1919. The temperatures in Boston climbed to 40 degrees. So it had been really cold, and then the last few days, the temperature had been slowly climbing, like right now, where we are right now. It's like they're having a warm snap. I mean, 40 degrees does not sound warm unless you live in New York State or Boston, and it's normally...
Yes.
Below zero.
If you're a northerner, 38 is like, woo, it's balmy.
Right. Okay. It had been freezing just days before this.
Right.
The temperature has been slowly increasing. They had received a large delivery of molasses the previous day, or 2 days beforehand. On the 13th is when they had their last molasses delivery, and they topped off the tank.
So it's full to capacity.
It's full to capacity, and it had only ever been this full this is only the 4th time it had been that full.
Okay.
In its life of this. I mean, this is 1919. This was built in 1915. Okay. So it's only 4 years old, this tank. It's not an old tank. It's new. If you think about how buildings are built. You know, it's like, this is a new building. Mm-hmm. It should be in tip-top shape, right? There was molasses in the tank still, right? And it's, 40 degrees. But in order to take the new molasses off the ship and put it in the tank, they have to heat it up. Yeah. Otherwise, we all know it's slower than molasses.
It'd take forever.
Even at 40 degrees, it's still cold. Like
it's solid like a rock.
It's really cold, And so they have to warm it up to add it to the new molasses. So they're taking something warm and adding it to something
cold.
Like, put your molasses in the fridge and see what it's like. Because your fridge is probably about 40, probably a little lower than 40, but you're thinking you're in the 40 degree. Most refrigerators are about 40 degrees or a little warmer, right around there. Around 12:30 p.m. on the 15th, The Great Molasses tank burst open and collapsed, flooding the north end with its contents.
How many millions?
2.3 million gallons of molasses flooding the north end of Boston.
Oh my goodness. People died.
Witnesses said they felt the ground shake and heard a loud roar or like a long rumble. Others said that it sounded like a machine gun firing, and that was the rivets popping out of this tank.
Those alone would kill someone flying out.
And a thunderous bang. Some said that it sounded like a cannon or an explosion. Like it was this huge loud, they felt it. Like it was this huge like boom. Like what just happened.
Like a bomb. A molasses bomb.
Molasses has a density of 12 pounds per gallon. It flowed out of this busted tank in a tidal wave 25 feet high.
Oh, I would puke.
At 35 miles per hour.
Oh my God.
Faster than water. Because, I mean, people think molasses is slow, but you're thinking you're taking a small amount and holding it up. This is under pressure, right? And it exploded. Like, the tank basically couldn't fit the molasses anymore and exploded out 25 feet high of molasses coming at you at 35 miles per hour.
You're dead.
Right.
You're dead.
Like, the people that survived this is a miracle that people survived. Like, it's
the sheer pressure of it hitting your body.
Right, and they said that
crush you.
It hit a truck, and the truck ended up in the Boston Harbor.
It just flew that far.
Right. They said some people were knocked back just from the air of it exploding. Like, they didn't even get hit by the molasses, just from the air.
The pressure of the air.
Right. Like,
shooting out.
Insane. It pushed a train off the tracks.
Oh, God.
It snapped steel girders and demolished buildings, including a nearby fire station.
I'm not surprised.
Right. I have some accounts from some of the people who survived. A boy by the name of Anthony DeStasio was 10 years old. He was a survivor. He described hearing a loud noise and within moments being swept away, struggling to breathe and stay afloat. Horrifying. He managed to grab onto a floating wooden plank that saved his life. He said that his mouth was full of molasses and he couldn't breathe. And he said he remembers blacking out. And then, because he was walking home from school with his siblings, and he had 4 siblings with him. And that when he opened his eyes, 3 of his siblings were looking at him. And his little sister is one of the ones that died. She was like 10.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's awful. Like, just to say, like, all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, what the hell just happened? Because these people didn't know what was going on.
No, I wouldn't know what was going on if molasses is coming at me.
I know, it's awful. Manuel Arsufi was a laborer working near the tank. He was knocked down by the wave and carried a few blocks in it. He described a feeling of immense pressure from the wave.
I bet.
And he remained trapped in the sticky mess until he was eventually rescued when the rescuers got to him. But he couldn't even get out. Like, he was just stuck.
He couldn't move.
Think about how sticky molasses
is. I can't! That's giving me great anxiety.
I know. I'm writing this all down. I'm like, this makes me
so anxious.
Awful. People who survived recounted the feeling of panic.
Yeah. I can feel that.
Being trapped in the molasses and unable to move or breathe. It said that being in there, it was like pressure on you. You can't move. You can't get out of it. You can't take it off of you.
Well, the weight of it.
And it just weight, like, and it's all around
and you can't, and it's sticky on top of being the pressure and the weight. That's awful. Like, you're like a fly in a web almost.
Exactly. That's what they said. 21 people would be killed, and 150 people injured.
I'm honestly surprised not more were killed.
Right.
That's a lot, but I'm surprised there's not more.
Molasses is 40% denser than water.
Crazy.
Rescue was very difficult.
I bet.
Molasses is dark and thick and sticky.
And you don't see people.
And all you could see was it moving. You didn't know what was under it.
Right.
You couldn't tell if it was a person or an animal.
You can't see through it. It's not
a building.
Right.
It demolished buildings. It pushed buildings. The pictures are insane. And the pictures, there's lots of pictures because it was 1919.
I was going to say, yeah.
There's a picture of the tank, and it just looks innocuous. It's just sitting there. And then the spot where it was sitting, you wouldn't know that it was there.
Because it blew that much. All of it's gone.
Gone. Like, everything was brown. Like,
I can't even imagine. That's a nightmare.
You couldn't move through it. Like, the rescuers were trying to get to people, and it took them forever. Just because they're trying to wade through. They said, some people said it was up to their waist. the molasses.
I was going to ask, like, how deep it was.
Yeah. This is a quote from the Boston Post from the event. Molasses, waist deep, covered the street and swirled and bubbled about the wreckage. Here and there, struggled to form. Whether animal or human being was impossible to tell. Only an upheaval, a thrashing about in this sticky mass, showed where any life was. Horses died like so many flies on sticky flypaper. The more they struggled, the deeper in the mess they were ensnared. Human beings, men and women, suffered likewise. Children, there's quite a few children that died.
I'm sure.
Older people, all ages.
Like you said, that one boy was able to grab wood,
right,
to pull him, like keep him from going under.
And then people were trapped under buildings that collapsed.
Yeah.
So, like, you're in a building that's collapsed, and there's molasses slowly seeping in.
Yeah, you're done.
It's like you're waiting for someone to try to find you, you know.
But how will they ever know you were even there?
I know, it's awful. People were hurt not just by the molasses itself, but by flying debris and collapsing structures.
Yeah,
so, like, there's people trapped in the molasses. There's people trapped in the buildings. It's like people got knocked out by things flying and hitting them.
Right. Just the bolts flying out could, like, shoot through you.
The first rescuers to arrive were the lieutenant commander, his name was H.J. Copeland, of the USS Nantucket. It was a training ship from the Massachusetts Nautical School, and it was docked in a pier close to where this disaster happened, and along with 116 cadets that were on the ship. They went to rescue people. Others to help in the rescue effort were local police and fire personnel, the Red Cross, as well as the Army and Navy, and hundreds of local civilians helped with the rescue.
Right.
Even if it was just, like, giving people food and calming people down.
Right.
But people searched, like, not just for survivors, but they actually, with the cleanup afterwards. And rescuers worked tirelessly through the night. There were so many injured that a makeshift hospital was set up in a nearby building. They searched for 4 days for survivors, and then they had to just, like, after 4 days, they're like,
we know if they were there, they're no longer alive at this point.
Many of the dead were unrecognizable because they're coated in molasses.
They're just thickly coated.
Right. They're just covered. And others were swept into the harbor with the molasses and not found for 3 or 4 months until the springtime. Like, I mean, they were like, it was a mess. It's just
terrible.
To think about it and to see the pictures, it's just like...
I said, I'm surprised only 22 people died.
21.
I'm surprised 21 people died.
Me too.
Because the amount that could just be crushed under it.
It covered more than 2 blocks. A 2-block radius. More than that is how far the molasses spread. That's a lot.
It is huge.
The cleanup took weeks. The molasses was tracked throughout Boston by people's feet and wheels and could be smelled throughout the city.
Oh, God, they probably hated it.
It is even said that the water in the harbor turned brown until summer.
I bet it did.
It was brown because of the molasses.
And water probably is sweet.
And in order to clean up, they used salt water and they used sand to absorb some of it. But they said everything in Boston was sticky. From subway platforms, seats and trains, to public phone handsets. And even people's homes had molasses in it. It was everywhere. Everything. I hate sticky things. I hate it. Like, that would be... I'd have to move.
You're like, I can't live here.
I can't live here because everything is sticky and it smells like molasses and I want to die.
And you never would want to see molasses again.
Ever. You know, when I was a kid and my dad tapped trees and, like, there's, like, a week or two where everything smells in your house smells like maple syrup.
Right.
And I'm like, I hate syrup. I don't want to ever smell it again. I can't imagine... But you leave the house and it's fine. This is everywhere.
You couldn't get away from it.
You couldn't escape it. Like,
you couldn't get the smell or the sticky.
Yes. Ugh. Terrible. So I'm like, you won't want molasses cookies. I still want molasses. I still kind of want molasses cookies.
Well, I guess if I got crushed by the weight of it, I would. But I didn't, so.
Yeah. So we're going on to what caused the tank to rupture. And we're going a little bit into the construction of this tank. Right? Because it wasn't very old. It was only 4 years old. So it's like wear and tear. Like, it's just full of molasses all the time.
It's the cold and heat.
Something. The tank was built on a solid foundation. It was reinforced with steel and concrete. It was built in a cylindrical shape with a height of 50 feet and a diameter of 90 feet. Steel plates were riveted together to make the walls watertight. and thick enough to hold the weight of the molasses when filled. So they had engineers, figure out how thick the walls needed to be.
Right.
And how they needed to put the steel plates together to make it so that it wouldn't leak and that it would hold the weight of when you filled it with 2.3 million gallons of freaking molasses. Yeah. The interiors were painted.
Did they think maybe they could do more than one smaller tower so there wasn't that much in one?
It was a company, they wanted to
maximize their profits.
And they had, it's like you can fit more.
Yeah.
Than if you put two tanks in the same, because I'm sure real estate in Boston is probably not cheap.
That's true.
You know. The interior of the tank was painted with a special molasses impervious substance. They didn't really say it was a special paint that was impervious to molasses. Okay. It was said to have always leaked from the first day they put molasses in it. You think they would have tested it with water first?
Something.
Yeah.
Because if water's coming out, it's real
molasses
thin.
Is thicker than water, but still, it's going to seep out. And they said that in the summer, little kids would bring their cups over to the tank and fill them up from where it was leaking out, and bring home cups of molasses.
Yeah. So it's coming out pretty good.
Yeah, and a fair amount. And it said that every time they filled it, it would groan and like creak and groan.
Creaks are bad.
Yeah.
Just so you know, people, creaking is bad.
The tank had been filled 30 times, and only 4 of those times was it filled to capacity. And the last time that it was filled on January 13th, it was filled to capacity. It was only the 4th time it had been filled that much.
Okay.
Right? An investigation into the disaster found that the structure of the tank had been inadequate.
Oh.
And the DA sought indictments against the owner, the engineer, and the incompetent, in quotation marks, city officials that had to do with the construction of this building.
Corrupt.
A grand jury found there was no basis for criminal liability. However, the victims of the catastrophe brought a class action lawsuit against the USIA. Who then claimed no responsibility due to it being terrorists who blew up the tank with dynamite. Because right at that point in American history, people were like, there was like terror mongering happening.
Okay.
And so they're like, oh no, it wasn't our fault. Terrorists put dynamite in the tank and blew it up. That's what happened. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sounds familiar though.
Right.
Terror mongering.
They lost.
Good.
And had to pay the victims $300,000, which in today's money is $5,396,309.09.
Good. It's not enough, but good.
Yep. They also found the steel walls were thinner than specified. The walls were only at the bottom 0.67 inches thick.
Oh, nice.
And at the top
0.67 inches thick.
Yes. And at the top 0.31 inches.
They're not even an inch.
Okay, I'm not an engineer. But I could tell you, that ain't thick enough.
No. For not the thick substance, 2 million gallons of it.
No! And the rivets
I'm surprised
failed.
it didn't bust the first time.
And they said the steel composition was substandard. Like, they didn't have enough manganese in the steel. And so what happened was, this is the same steel composition they used to make the Titanic.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
We know what happened there.
Right. And it's susceptible to cold temperatures. So when it gets really cold under a certain temperature, the steel becomes brittle. So they said that they could see where the rivets were, there were little cracks starting to form, and that's basically like...
They loosened all the stuff.
The molasses that got added to the tank was warm, and what was in there was cold, and the temperatures outside were a little warmer. So I think what happened was the molasses started to expand in the tank. People were like, it started to ferment. I go, I don't think 40 degrees is enough to ferment.
No.
And one of the articles I read said people got burned by the molasses. Like, there's no way that molasses was hot enough. But maybe it was because they had just filled it. And then that morning, they topped it off with the warm molasses. Who knows how hot they heated it and put it in there. And so maybe it was hot.
You're right. And they flowed... The more liquidous
and think about
stuff
too,
would hit faster.
It was hot when it started, and it was 40 degrees, which is warm for January. But guess what happens at night in the winter?
Cold.
It gets cold. And guess what happens to molasses when it gets
Thickens.
cold? It becomes cement. It becomes like glue.
It could have hit you liquidy and then solidified.
And then you're stuck in it, and you're trying to get out. And then at night comes, and it gets cold, and it starts to get like solidified around you,
like cement.
Like then you're probably dead. Like
yeah, because it crushed your lungs.
Basically,
you can't breathe anymore.
You can't breathe. Either it's in your mouth and you can't breathe, or it's around your body and you can't breathe. And that sounds like the worst nightmare ever.
I can't handle that.
Yeah, and when I read about this, I'm like, this is horrible. People need to know about this. Like, why don't we learn about this in school?
We don't learn about it.
Because this is about the horrors of corporations.
Oh, yeah. Greedy
corporations that just want to make a buck. Those jerks. And the rise in temperatures probably caused the molasses to expand, making the tank explode and kill people with molasses. Because
they had not even an inch thick.
When I first read about it, I'm like, oh my God. And I laughed. And then I thought about, like, when people died, I go, that's terrible. I go, this isn't funny.
No, it's horrifying.
It is. It's awful. Awful assholes. It's like, and this was after the Titanic sank.
So, you know that what happened to Titanic, but let's use the same
steel composite. It's because it was cheaper.
Of course it was.
Putting the full with the manganese in it.
And let's make it real thin, too.
Yeah.
Let's build this, make it real. Don't you realize it's going to cost you more money?
The fact that it leaked from day one is probably an indicator that you probably shouldn't be putting all that molasses in.
No.
It's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. We tested it. We wrote the numbers out. Yeah, but if you don't go by the numbers you write out.
Right.
That's the trick. So, yeah, that was the Great Molasses Disaster of 1919.
That's horrifying.
It's a horrible, it's a sticky situation, but it's like a nightmare of a sticky situation.
A nightmare of a sticky situation. I feel a title of an episode right there. I don't like that at all.
No. But yeah.
I can't imagine. Like you're just walking down the street and all of a sudden you're swept up in a big gooey mess.
25 feet high tidal wave of molasses.
And like slowly suffered too. That's the worst part.
Like all the dogs that died. They said so many horses died and dogs died and people. 21 people. Is a lot.
It is, but I'm surprised more didn't, just because of the massiveness.
There's a link to the Wikipedia. I read a book, and the book was okay. It's fine. There's a link in the thing, but it's like a lot of repetition in each chapter. Like repeats the chapter beforehand.
I hate that.
And so I'm like, this book was 6 hours long. It really could have been 2 hours long. You know what I mean? I
hate that. They just do it to bulk it up.
Really, they're just trying to make it
longer.
That's
not good writing.
No, and
just
I'm
so
like,
you know.
So then, I got all excited because I found this book, and I'm like, yeah, this book isn't going to work. So I did a lot of research online. And the Wikipedia page about this event lists all the people who passed, and their names and their ages and what they did for a living.
Oh.
And I probably should read that. Okay. So this is a list of the people that died and their age and what they did. There's Patrick Breen. He was 44. He was a laborer in the North End paving yard. William Brogan, 61. He was a teamster. Bridget Clougherty, she was 65. She was a homemaker. Stephen Clougherty, 34, unemployed. It must have been her son.
Yeah.
John Callahan, 43. He was a paver with the North End paving yard. Same with this other man. These men were working.
Yep.
Maria DeStasio, which is the little sister of that little boy. Aww. She was 10. William Duffy, 58, laborer, North End paving yard again. Peter Francis, 64, blacksmith, the North End paving yard. Falaminio Gallerani, 37. He was a driver. Pasquale Iantosca, 10. Oh. So sad. James Keneally, laborer, North End paving yard. That North End paving yard.
I know.
Must have been right next to it.
Yep.
It's awful. Eric Laird, 17, teamster. 17. Mm-hmm. George Leahy, 38, firefighter, engine 31. James Lennon, 64, teamster, motorman. Ralph Martin, 21, he was a driver. James McMullen, 46, foreman of the Bay State Express. Caesar Nicolo, 32, expressman. Thomas Noonan, 48, longshoreman. Peter Shaughnessy, 18, he's a teamster. John M. Sieberlich, 69, he was a blacksmith at the North End paving yard. And then Michael Sinat, 78, he was a messenger. 78.
Made it to 78 during a time you don't
because
live that long.
He was working.
He didn't have an option.
Still working at 78, and then he gets killed by molasses. It's ridiculous. Awful. Yeah.
And I wonder, part of it is, too, you said there was a lot of immigrants. If that's why no one really talked about it, because
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, a lot of these names are all...
Yeah, they sound like...
Italian and Spanish and...
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's... But it's weird that I've never heard of such a thing.
I'd never heard of it either.
And we live in, like, really close to New England. You'd think it would have been something you'd heard
That's
about.
like...
It's not that long ago.
That's like... For the time, that's like an incident like the World Trade Center for us.
Yes.
You know? I mean, if you consider, like, how many people lived then. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, 21 people is not as much as the thousands that died in the World Trade Center.
Right, but it's a disaster that happened.
Right, and it, like, happened and killed people and
traumatized people and devastated a whole area of Boston, which is a big city. Like,
it really is. I'm just, like, when I read about it, I'm like, how have we not heard of this? Like, maybe we talk about this at school.
Well, I mean, they don't talk about the Trail of Tears and all the other horrible atrocities that happened in our country.
Right.
Specifically to people, by our government. So, they're not going to talk about that.
Right. It's not important.
No.
But, I mean, this tragedy, like, changed a lot of legislation in Boston at the time for buildings and things like that. And, like, although, I mean... This company wasn't really held responsible. They were sued, which that's how you hit a company like that.
Yeah, hit them.
But they didn't have any criminal charges. I think today they might actually have been held liable.
Yeah, that's manslaughter. It's manslaughter.
Right.
They didn't do it to kill people, but they did kill people.
Negligence on their end.
Right.
I think that in today's time, they probably would have been held liable, but it was different then. Mm-hmm. They were at the end, and honestly, they said that this happened at the same time as peace talks during World War I, like the treaty, and this was for the Boston News. This was on the cover of every paper. It didn't even they didn't even notice. But that might be why people didn't know about this, is because it happened at the same time.
Big news is already out there,
so that might be why people were like, I don't need to hear about that. I want to know what's happening with the war.
Right. If it didn't affect me. Didn't affect me. I don't care. Kind of mentality, but. Oh, golly, Margaret.
So that's it.
That's depressing.
I know. But I thought it was a weird, like, a 25-foot tidal wave of molasses is pretty weird.
It's pretty weird.
It's pretty terrible.
Horrifying.
Nightmare. That's like a nightmare. That is a nightmare.
It doesn't even sound like it could have been real.
Yeah, I know. It's like, if this happened in a movie, like, that's ridiculous.
I know. I'd be like, that would never happen.
It totally did happen.
And it happened.
But it actually did happen, yeah. So, yeah, that's it.
I don't like it. Mm-mm. Well, if you want to see pictures of it.
Yeah, I shared some pictures.
We'll have those on our Facebook and Instagram.
When you look at it, you're like, molasses did that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well,
a lot of it was the force. Because
but
the kinetic energy that's stored in something like that. Because,
like,
if you think about a tidal wave will rip trees out by the root.
Yeah.
And molasses is denser than water. So it's going to hit you with even more pounds per square inch than water. So it's, like, horrible to think about.
Yeah. My dad always taught me the power of water. Always talked about, like, water safety and how dangerous water could be if you didn't respect it.
Right.
So water, which is much thinner, can devastate. So I can't even imagine, like, the devastation that 40% thicker than water could do with the force that it had. Crazy. But you can see the pictures on our Facebook and Instagram, The Cousins Weird Podcast. Find us there.
If you'd like to send us a message, you can send us a direct message through Facebook or Instagram, or you can send us an email, and our email is thecousinsweird@gmail.com.
Share any of your stories. You have some weird history events that you want us to cover? Let us know. Send us a message.
We're always looking for weird stuff.
Or if you had weird things happen to you specifically, we love to do our fans' tales. Like, that'd be great to be able to share your stories. So send us a message on our email and Facebook or Instagram. That'll help us a lot. And the best way to support our podcast is always word of mouth. Tell your friends about The Cousins Weird. Put us out in the universe. You can like our pages. You can review us on your platform of choice. That pushes us up in the algorithm so that more people get to see us. So the more you review us and give us, what's it called? Rate us. That's the word I'm looking for.
Rate us.
Rate us and review our podcast. The more people get to see us. So,
and share.
Yes. And share us with your friends.
And we have Patreon.
We do have a Patreon. if you really would like to support us that way,
help us get new mics.
We need new mics, friends. We're struggling with the mic department. We're on the struggle, but we've tried many. None of them work well.
Or they work for like 2 months and then they don't work anymore.
I know. And then we're like, how many more can we invest in? So if you want to help us sound better, patreon.com/thecousinsweird. For only $1 a month. It's a steal.
It really is.
For $1 a month, you get a free sticker, bonus content.
You know, we only have a few, or one, $5 Patreon. So, Anthony, if you're listening, and we
love you, Anthony.
We love you, and
we suck.
We didn't have our quarterly meetup, so we should go out for drinks.
Yes.
At some point.
Let's just meet out.
Hit us up, shoot us a message, and we'll get together and we'll just hang out.
Yeah.
Because you're awesome and we miss you. We'll go out for cocktails. Or, if you don't drink cocktails, coffee. Because I'm always up for coffee.
I like coffee. I like cocktails. Whatever you want, my friend.
Let us know, whatever Anthony. We love you.
Yeah, we'll buy you a drink. Coffee or a cocktail. Whichever you want.
Yep.
So, for $5 a month to become a terrible trender, and you get free sticker, bonus content, ad-free episodes,
and maybe even the occasion to come hang out with Colleen and I, you know.
Yeah. Who needs a Zoom when you can meet in person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as
we're a good time.
We are a good time.
So come see us.
100%. Just don't be a creep.
We don't like that. Anyway, I think that's it. I don't know. We haven't done this in a while. I forget.
I know. Stay freaky.
Bye.
Bye.